help support the many large and small and medium enterprise businesses across Doncaster, across the region. And the future growth depends on the whole supply chain working together. So here we are today, wrestling with decarbonisation and how we can make a real difference. Moving freight off the roads and onto rail can make a real difference. I think everyone in this room realises this, and strategies produced by Transport for the North, the RailFreight Group and the Rail Industry Association have all highlighted the opportunities. If we can get things right, that would be a massive opportunity. A big part of the solution here will require new and creative thinking, and probably most of all collaboration, as well as learning from the past. Innovation is the key here, which is why events like this move the agenda forward and encourage collaboration and innovation. We know there are other challenges around capacity, and I know you are all pressing for these changes here too, so I hope that those in government are listening and will act appropriately. Rail will continue to play a significant role in the future of this city. We are currently awaiting the result of the GBRTT bid, for which Doncaster was shortlisted, and we are now told the decision will be made before Easter. We have a very strong bid, and we have our fingers crossed for success. We now have this great facility here at Unipart, led by Unipart Rail. This hub will support the sector in translating academic research and innovation to solve industry challenges. And this will enable development of the next generation of products and services. The hub will have a particular focus on supporting SMEs, both those established and new to the industry. We are proud to have this here in Doncaster. It's also important to highlight that if we look at South Yorkshire, there are important businesses working in the rail sector, as well as other important freight terminals. The regional significance has resulted in successful bids in a recent round of rail innovation grants, with the region being awarded 28% of the total pot of funds. And we look forward to seeing full use of those funds across South Yorkshire. And finally, as a parting shot, it would be good if we could see Northern Powerhouse Rail delivered in full. So once again, a warm welcome to Doncaster, and please enjoy the day, everyone. So thank you very much, and I'll hand over to Milda. Thank you, Milda. Cheers.
Thank you very much to the Deputy Mayor. It's great to have such a warm welcome to Doncaster. So I'll make proper introductions of myself. So I am Milda Manomaityte. I'm the Innovation Director at Railway Industry Association, and I look after the Unlocking Innovation Programme, which half of it you see here, but things are changing, things are moving along, so this graph will change quite significantly as the year progresses as well. But the Unlocking Innovation Programme is designed to, it's open for everyone, not just RIA members. It's designed to promote innovation in rail, to unlock the access to innovation opportunities for suppliers, and to create opportunities for suppliers, clients, and different innovators to network and meet each other and exchange ideas. So this is the first, it is the first Unlocking Innovation event this year. We have quite a few more planned, and as you see, the second half of the year is still up for grabs for ideas, although I have some. We also have partnered with a lot of other organizations and events to bring the innovation agenda to the front of the conversations. The next big event, though, as you probably know, and I hope you know and are attending, is the RIA Innovation Conference. So this will be the first year that I've taken over from David Clark, our technical director, to lead the agenda of the RIA Innovation Conference, and I hope I've I'm hoping to kind of leave my own mark there and bring a few different things and sort of take over all of the things that worked and change some things up. So there will be some things that you recognize and some things new at the Innovation Conference. But as always, it will be 2 days, a big event enabling you to just meet a lot of innovators, a lot of clients, and just have really good time, I hope. You also notice the RIA North banner here, and this is part of RIA's effort to make sure we reach to all of the nations and regions in this land and understand all of the unique issues that each region and route and nation have. So what we're doing, we rolled out our Nations and Regions program, and we have RIA Scotland, RIA North. RIA North and Scotland is led by David Clark, our technical director. Where is David, by the way? Here he is. I hope you all know him. I lead on Midlands and Eastern region. We also have RIA London and South and Wales and Western, and we are developing Northern Ireland region. So our business engagement manager, or your person on the ground for RIA North and RIA Midlands and Eastern, is Richard Carr. Where are you, Richard? Here he is, right at the back. So please do meet him, talk to him. Richard is building a program of local engagement events and building relationships with local clients and authorities. Right, I think there's one more slide there. Oh, sorry, I think I have done something. There we go. Phoebe, can you make it full screen, please? Thank you. There was no other slide. Okay, never mind. Can you go to there we go, that's me. Right, so this is the agenda for today. We'll have lots and lots of presentations with a bit of a break, and at the end we will do an iPort rail visit. So a really interesting facility, and there will be a bus waiting for us. It will take us to iPort Rail. We will sit in the bus. We will not leave it, so you'll have a relaxed time there. And the bus will bring us back here, and then we'll drop people who are traveling by train back to the train station afterwards. And just very quickly, we are also developing a thought leadership paper, Data and Digital Capabilities for Rail, and Sam Bement is our author of the paper. Sam, where are you? He is there. He was drinking coffee. So Sam is writing the paper, and there is still an opportunity for RIA members to submit a case study around data and digital capabilities. If you have an interesting story to share, please do. Here's the QR code, and as you say, you'll get these slides after the event as well. Right. RIA conference, I mentioned that. Okay, I'm just going to go back because we're not going to Maggie just yet. Just going to go back to the main slide. I would like to now invite our host and the managing director of Unipart Rail, Neil McNicholas. Neil, thank you very much for having us, and thank you very much for Chris Elliott of organizing all of this. And the floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody, and a very warm welcome to Unipart Rail Doncaster Jupiter House. Also, as previously said, welcome to the Ukraine Innovation Hub. You'll hear more about that very shortly. Particularly relevant to me personally, the RailFreight industry and innovation, and I'll explain a little bit about that at the moment, and particularly relevant to Unipart Rail as an organisation, because we're evolving and our strategy is changing. You may remember us as the supply chain people, the people that manage spares, etc., etc. But we're now becoming, our vision is to become the performance improvement partner for the industry. And again, I'll explain a little bit about that. So we are evolving as an organisation. For those who have not met yet, I'm Neil McNicholas. I have spent 25 years plus in the rail industry. So after a short career in mining, quarrying, and then through the nuclear industry, on the advent of privatisation, I joined the rail industry. And I actually was part of the team that formed one of the freight operators in the UK, Direct Rail Services. And I was with that organisation for 20 years. I spent most of that 20 years as managing director of that. I then left DRS, and after a short foray into Saudi Arabian freight railways, And there's a prime example of how to grab technology and implement it poorly and then suffer the consequences. Kept me ably employed for 3 years trying to sort it out. But that's a great example of how not to do innovation and technology. I became managing director of Freightliner and spent 5 years UK managing director of Freightliner. So the freight industry is very dear to my heart, and also innovation within the freight industry is exceptionally close to my heart as well. And now Unipart Rail being a transformation organisation, everything for me has finally come together. Shamefully, we should have kicked off as a safety critical industry with a few housekeeping issues. So there are no fire alarms today. If the fire alarm goes off, it's either real or a big malfunction. Either way, we're behaving the same way. If you go out through the fire door on my right-hand side, you'll find the assembly point is on the far end of the car park under some big green signs. So just proceed out there and we'll take it from there. You'll have already enjoyed the facilities. If you haven't already, they are either side of the reception, ladies and gents there. If you have any kind of medical issue, please let one of the organisers know, either a Unipart Rail person or a RIA person, and we'll deal with it from there. A little tip I picked up from being a first aider myself: if you don't wear an SOS bracelet and you have a medical issue, write it down and stick it in your left pocket, because as a first aider, that's the first place somebody will look to deal with that. Since the establishment of Ukraine, its role and influence in developing research and innovation has been steadily growing. The pace of the new digital technology and innovation is accelerated in unprecedented levels now, and how we harness the opportunity is critical to delivering an affordable railway for the future. And it's those very challenges that Ukraine and the hub here is designed to deal with. As a founding member of Ukraine, we're very proud to work with our partners, with academia, with SMEs, and help those organisations bridge what I call the chasm of doom, which is great ideas floundering in the middle before they come to production and fruition. The main idea behind Ukraine is where great ideas converge. So it's rather than the valley of death where great ideas come to die. It's quite the opposite. What I would ask you to do during your time here, as well as networking with your colleagues, is have a look up and down this alleyway, this innovation alleyway, because it showcases some of the ideas that are coming forward, and actually some of them how mature they are in terms of evolving to real performance improvement type products, and we've got lots of those. Our pipeline at the moment stands at 60 products, and that, when we looked at the savings across CP7, if they all come to fruition, and there'll be different timelines of development, could save around £1 billion to the industry. So there's a very, very significant saving from adopting some of this technology, the solutions. And you'll have heard some of those about the way we now want to monitor the infrastructure, the new signalling systems, the efficiency, all that will bring to the railway. But some of those products are very simple, and some of those products develop from outside our industry. One prime example is we deal with a piece of overhead line equipment that was particularly difficult to install. So we contacted and got in collaboration with a suspended ceiling organisation. They actually do more complex things like big suspension cables for telecom masts. And between us, we've developed a solution that's 10 times quicker to install than the incumbent. And it's those collaborations that really, really matter to the industry. And now's the time to stop looking inward all the time, to actually looking outwards into other industries that do things better that we can bring into a safety critical environment. So please look at the showcase area. One thing you will hear about today is one of our digital solutions in collaboration with Unipart Technical Group, which is a Paradigm Insights. And I've had first-hand experience of this in Freightliner and the improvements that made in terms of condition monitoring, but more taking this huge pool of data that we've got in the industry and actually making it manageable and actually converting it into something that people on the ground can deal with and do things differently. So the data lakes that we've got are huge. There's no issues about collecting data, it's about what we do with it and how we make a difference. And Paradigm Insights is one way of doing that. And Sam Bussey from Instrumentel will tell you a little bit more about that later on. I've talked about collaboration with non-rail companies The other one we've got around here is we've collaborated with a company called Fuel Active. They have a great history with the mining and quarrying industry, where you've got hundreds of tons of excavators working with big diesel engines. And they developed a product which, being from the freight industry, I was skeptical about, because somebody said, oh, we've got this fuel-saving device. And I went, snake oil? Skeptical freight industry, as some of us are. But actually, when we've looked at it and the evidence from the quarrying industry, it's a huge saving. It's got great environmental credentials, and actually it saves on engine maintenance, particularly injectors. We've brought them into the rail industry, and we're helping them through the approval processes to get those products in the industry. Because for us, performance improvement partner really means we either save on costs, we save on operational efficiency, or we save in terms of sustainability. And often, all three of those apply in the same way. So, just let me finally tell you a little bit more about Unipart, and just take a couple of more minutes of your time. People will generally know Unipart Rail, as I've said before, the guys that deal with supply chain. But we have now so many technological solutions and manufacturing capability as well. If you didn't already know, we have a little factory in Southport that makes a significant number of the signals that you will be familiar with within the UK. We've actually taken that and we now export that to Canada. Huge numbers, 5,500 signals went to Canada, exported from Southport. So not only are we improving the UK's railway, we're now an exporter, and we export significant technology that the UK rail industry leads in to other parts of the world. And we've got operations in Canada, in the US, in the Middle East, and particularly in Australia. A lot of those systems were built on the UK railway. So as we innovate, that innovation equally applies to those rails, and we're exporting those. But we are part of a bigger group, if you didn't know. Our heritage goes back to the 70s, where Unipart actually came out of buying out the supply chain from British Leyland all that time ago. But we've evolved since then. We're now 8,000 people strong at a group level. We have 5 key divisions, and our turnover for this year is going to exceed £1 billion. So we're part of a large organisation, and we feed off that organisation. Because there's technology in the automotive group that we've got. We have a collaboration with Rolls-Royce Aerospace, and we're using that to actually repair trains now that have cracking issues. I won't go into all of that, but we use their smart technology that they use inside engines to repair them on a wing to now repairing trains. So it's about leveraging that technology across the various industries. And as I said, we are one of 5 divisions. We have 38 UK sites, and we have 74 sites worldwide. And we have 3 innovation centres, actually. This is the key one for rail. We have one in Coventry that's all associated with innovation in manufacturing. And then we have one in Cowley, where our roots still remain, which is digital and smart products, smart solutions. So we're part of a bigger group, and we leverage off that. In terms of rail, as I've said already, we have several entities within Unipart Rail. We've got Unipart Rail itself, but we also have Westcode, and we have Westcode US, which are pneumatic facing companies. We have Sam James Engineer, Power Products. We have Dorman Signals, which is what I referred to before. We also have some joint ventures. We've got LUR in Manchester, so all the wheel sets, and a joint venture with Lorenzini Rail Services. And we've got a joint venture that maintains all of the trains for Sydney trains, called UGL, the United Group. We've also got a joint venture in Saudi Arabia, and there's some exciting things happening over there after we've finally started to align the technology and get some productivity out of it. And from a group level, we have some key customers that are well outside of rail as well. So we actually, as a group, we manage all of the Sky products that are in your homes. We get all of the equipment to the Sky engineers that will come and replace your dish or your faulty box. All of that is our supply chain to manage. We have a portfolio of automotive manufacturers that we supply, Jaguar, Land Rover. We even do work with McLaren. All of their engine supplies is through our group. So we have a great history about supply chain management, innovation, and technology. We even manage the whole of the supply chain for consumables in the NHS as well. So if you ever slip and fall and end up on a pair of crutches, we've sent you those crutches. Okay. So that just gives you a flavour about what we're all about. You'll hear some some more about it, please go and ask, see all the products around the world, some really innovative stuff going on. Chris at the back, stick your hand up, Chris. He's our fuel active man. So if you're interested in saving substantial amount of fuel as a freight industry and saving your injectors, go and see Chris. And Sam Bussey is going to tell you all about Paradigm Insights and how to mine that data lake that we've got as an industry. So thank you all for coming. Thank you for your attention. And we will see you throughout the day.
Thank you very much, Neil. So now I would like to invite our first keynote speaker, because you can't talk about RailFreight without RailFreight Group. And I would like to invite Maggie Simpson, OBE, Chief Executive of RailFreight Group. And you can advance.
Thank you very much, Milda, and to the whole of the RIA team for putting on this great event. It's always a joy to be in Doncaster. As the Deputy Mayor said, Doncaster very much the heart of the freight railway. Somebody once told me that despite the Flying Scotsman, Mallard and everything else, the only thing LNER ever made any money on was moving coal. So rail freight is absolutely critical to the heritage of Doncaster and will continue to be so, I know. And those of you who I hope are going on the tour this afternoon at iPort can see rail freight in its modern form, in rail-link warehousing. And unfortunately, I think you can't get into a warehouse today to see the technology that goes on inside those warehouses. But believe you me, it's really impressive. So perhaps ask some questions about that as you go round. But it's a pleasure to be here today. I thought as the first keynote, it was worth just talking for a few moments about rail freight in general in terms of its place in the UK economy and also its place in UK railways. And these are numbers which are, repeated frequently, that rail freight is providing over £2.5 billion worth of benefits to the UK economy every year. And that's a combination of environmental benefits, and that is reduced carbon, air quality emissions, noise, road congestion in particular, a big part of that, but also benefits to those companies who are using rail freight, our customers. And they get those benefits because rail freight is, or at least it was before industrial action, reliable. It is cost effective, particularly over longer distances. And it's providing really critical supply chain resilience. And we've seen through COVID and supply chain disruption that's come on the back of Brexit that having those reliable and resilient supply chains is absolutely critical because the economy relies on them. And we've seen people pulling away perhaps from that reliance on just-in-time that they would have had before, and rail freight therefore able to play a bigger role in feeding those warehouses that you'll see this afternoon. And there are some takeaway statistics there that you can see. I think for me, the key part of that is about the distribution of those benefits is truly across the entirety of the country. In fact, if anything else, we need some more rail freight in London and the South East because that's probably the area that's underserved, but across the north of England, Scotland and the Midlands, very significant benefits accruing. And of course, that's 7.6 million lorries off the road each year. For any of you who've come up the A1 today or the M1 will understand exactly why we need more of that. And just looking at the reasons why we want rail freight to grow, and as an organisation, we want rail freight to grow, and I know that's a shared ambition increasingly across the railway industry and across our customer base. Obviously, that carbon emission point is critical. We need to be saving carbon today, not in 2050. And actually, for most businesses, moving more goods by rail today is probably the thing they can do to reduce carbon emissions out of their supply chains. Whilst obviously people are looking at alternative HGV technology and other modes as well, more rail freight today is absolutely ticking that sustainability box, and it's bringing a lot of customers to rail freight right now. That changing pattern of trade post-Brexit, it's bringing more trade into regional ports, for example, more trade coming in on what we'd call intermodal, so lift-on units rather than roll-off lorry trade, bringing more goods onto rail. And new free port zones are being established around the country, and we're already seeing, businesses looking very much at what they can do in those zones, particularly around renewable energy and new technologies coming in. We know that the growth in rail freight is supporting job creation, and Steve and colleagues will tell you about the number of people employed out in places like iPort, but it's thousands of jobs, and these are high quality jobs. They're technology jobs supporting that automation in those warehouses. And so it's not only creating jobs, it's creating the right type of jobs to support the modern economy. And we're building a lot of new infrastructure as well. I mean, HS2 are a big customer of RailFreight at the moment in terms of the construction materials that we need. We're also supporting Hinckley development, Sizewell not behind it, far behind it, but also just, you know, the regular run of homes, offices, new investment in infrastructure across the country being increasingly supported by the movement of rail freight products. And so as we move to a world where, fingers crossed, we move into economic recovery, I think we've just ducked recession this week, but only just, you know, rail freight is an increasingly important part of that story. And what we're seeing as an organisation is that customers of rail freight are really ambitious for growth, and they are spending big money on that. iPort is an example of that, but there are other sites, Northampton Gateway, East Midlands Gateway, West Midlands Interchange, big investments going in, but also in smaller terminals and facilities and wagons in the construction sector. And Tim from GBRTT speaking later, and I'm sure we'll mention the investments that they're making in locomotives and in wagons and in the technology and equipment to support that as well. So the rail freight operators investing there in their part of that journey, the assets, the rolling stock, the terminals, and the customers investing in their part of the journey, the systems, the terminals, the equipment that they need, really coming together as a powerhouse for growth. So where does innovation sit in that journey? Well, I've tried to group up my thoughts on the innovation space in three parts. And let me say, I think, you know, as a sector, actually innovation isn't news. It is a sector that has been innovating quietly for quite a long time. And I'm really seeing the pace of that accelerating now. In the last few years, a real focus through the innovation competitions that I know we'll hear about later, but in businesses as well. And really around three areas. Firstly, that is about supporting growth. Those new customers who want to come onto rail need a buyable product that talks to them. So how do we get those new customers attracted to rail? How do we portray that innovation that we're doing to make that a buyable product for them? How do we aggregate volume across multiple customers? Because not everybody has a full train every night. Some businesses have a third of a train or 2 containers or 4 pallets. How do we aggregate that into train load, and what's the space for innovation there? How can we be as efficient and as cost effective as we can be? Because let's be clear, road haulage is, you know, it's cheap again at the moment actually, because the economy is dropping. We've trained new drivers, fuel prices at the pump have dropped. So we need to be chasing out that efficiency and that cost effectiveness for our customers. How can innovation help us in that and in that customer service? So the customer knows where their train is, or they know what the space is on that train, or if there is a delay, they know what's going to happen. How can we use the network capacity better? And that is about finding capacity for whole new trains, but it's also about taking trains that take too long and making them take less time on the networks. We've got Phil from Varamis speaking later. I know some of his trains have been massively outperforming the path that they've been allowed on the network. How can we bank that into that productivity gain? And how can we better use that engineering access capability that we know we need, but actually we take a lot of it, we don't use it very well, and freight trains get cancelled for it. So how can we do that better? And then those new markets and those new products which need to come onto rail, how do we grab them? Sustainability, you know, as I've said, customers are looking to rail freight because it is the low carbon option today and will be into the future. But actually, we also need to demonstrate that we're doing better. So how can we demonstrate that we are saving carbon? Neil's spoken about products that they're developing that have a demonstrable fuel saving and thus carbon saving. But oftentimes we do something, we don't talk about the carbon saving that generates. It might be a fuel saving thing or an efficiency thing. So we need to be better at articulating that. How can we get those small carbon emissions from our operations that are saving us 1%, 2%, 3%? Because that really matters to those customers who are up against that sustainability target. But equally, what is the pathway to 2050? That's not getting any further away. How do we reach that? And within there, you know, how do we reduce idling? Can we make our equipment use less power? Because electricity is, let's be clear, a scarce good or an increasingly scarce good. Are there things we can innovate there? How do we reduce waste, circular economy, recycling of products? How do we get better at biodiversity? And that isn't, you know, if you look at most railway yards, there's quite a lot of weeds about, but actually, you know, is that, how do we make that into a narrative about biodiversity that properly matters? And how do we make our operations quieter and better neighbours? And finally, and I've grouped this up around productivity, but you could take it in lots of ways. How do we do the stuff we do better? Because when we unpeel the onion of how the railway operates, and this isn't only about freight, we are still working with, possibly not systems that Brunel would recognise, but possibly systems that Brunel's children might recognise, you know? So how do we modernise the way that we work, the way that we plan trains, operate trains, timetable trains? You know, Neil talked about a data pool, and can we use that then to change the way that we do things? How do we make it better on the ground for our staff? RailFreight is a remote working environment in many cases. How do we make that life better for them? How do we predict things and analyse the performance of our assets better so that we can get away from failures on the network? And how do we work in, RailFreight is a big worker in possessions. We have locomotives sitting in possession space every weekend, burning fuel, consuming driver hours. How can we be more efficient about that so that we can, help the railway to become more efficient on that journey too? So I think, it's an amazingly exciting place, actually. We've already heard about, burgeoning innovations that are working in freight, and there's lots to talk about today about those ones which are coming, which will make a huge difference to the way that we operate. So today is really well timed. I'm really excited to be here and hear about more of the innovations that are happening and those that can help unlock rail freight, deliver growth, and help us delight our customers. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Maggie. And we are now going to our next speaker, which is Richard Moody, who is in charge of the freight reform at Great British Railways Transition Team. The floor is yours. This is how you advance.
Hello, everyone. So I'm not an expert in innovation, but I'm not an expert in anything, really. I'm a generalist. So, but what my job is, I'm Richard Moody. I'm Programme Director for Freight Reform in the Great British Railway Transition Team. My role is to how do we move freight forward to make sure rail reform doesn't leave freight reform and gives it the opportunity to reach its full potential and grow. We're going to have a North Star to aim for. There's going to be a long-term growth target. Hopefully that should be announced in the autumn of this year, and hopefully it's ambitious and gives us a clear thing to aim for and working together. But we can't do growth just by continuing to do what we do now. As a number of the things Maggie said, new markets, new technologies, making better use of what we have, it's going to need all of that. So innovation is absolutely key to this. So for those who didn't see the Bradshaw address a couple of weeks ago, the Secretary of State emphasised the role the private sector is going to have in this. And this in the innovation space and research and development, that is going to be absolutely key in the freight space. RailFreight is a huge success story of the private sector. Apart from using Network Rail's infrastructure, it's entirely operated and delivered by the private sector for the private sector. But so my view, one of the things I've been tasked with thinking about in freight reform is how will GBR, when it comes along, think about research, development, and innovation for freight. I see there being three key outcomes activities in this space should deliver against. One is improving safety, first and foremost. Anything we can do that is a huge win for everyone who works in the sector. The second thing is enabling growth. And the last one is about making rail freight greener. People will say to me, oh, what about cost? Well, if we can reduce cost through innovation, that will enable growth because it makes it more attractive for people to use. And in terms of how do we make things greener, the space I'm looking is not also just how can technology do it, trying to look at I've got a policy team, what policies could we give advice to the government on incentives to make people choose to use greener technologies, because today there's an additional cost. So we all know the challenges around electricity pricing today. We all know that HVO, as good as it is, it does cost more than diesel. So what incentives are there to make people to want to move to using greener technologies? But the role of the strategic freight unit, which is being set up in GBRTT for GBR, first and foremost, we do not want to control this space. Absolutely not. We want to be an enabler and to be able to help the sector and those outside the sector work together to be able to drive forward innovation for freight. This could be in a whole host of things, from being able to join people up within GBR and into trialing things from that side to linking innovation groups together and partners. One of the things we are trying to do is actually trying to create a library of all the great stuff which is happening in this space. There's a lot of stuff happening through various public sector funding, through Innovate UK, Catapult, RSSB, they're all doing great stuff. And there's a whole load of great stuff in the private sector. I'd love someone to correct me if I'm wrong, there's nowhere where there's a single view of all this stuff happening and where we can link people together. And by doing that, we want to build relationships with everybody here. If we can help you, we will. You just need to ask and understand. We need to understand what you'd need from us and if we can help. We want to be a trusted partner. We don't want to control things. We want to be an enabler for everybody to be successful. The current work, though, we've got going on at the moment, have a commission being undertaken at the moment, which is trying to pull together what is the landscape of research, development and innovation happening today? How do we identify, are there any gaps? There may be gaps, there might not be gaps. How do we provide greater spotlights on certain areas which could do with that support or advocacy to really drive it forward? One of the things I've seen personally is there's barriers from taking great ideas and seeing them come to fruition and being used in the real world. I want to understand, what are those barriers? Is it because whoever bears the cost doesn't see the benefit? Is it because there's too much of an affordability gap to overcome? By trying to understand these things, I want to try and be able to drive ways forward where we can overcome those barriers and everybody's able to be successful and grow freight through using innovation. As I said, I'm not the expert in this space. My ears are open. I'm here for most of the day, happy to have conversations with people. If there's you want to arrange separate sessions to understand some more about how we can help you more. I've got a market development team, I've got strategy teams, I've got policy teams. We're there and we want to be able to help. We're not all about how do we get to the future, we're trying to make a real difference now. So thank you, and I look forward to speaking to lots of you later on.
Thank you very much, Richard. Now we would like to move to the railway users, clients. Mary Banks from Deutsche Bahn. Mary, are you in the room? There you go. Hi, please welcome Mary here. She is Chief Transformation and Digitalisation Officer and will tell us all about the exciting stuff you're working on. Thank you very much.
Hi, good morning, everybody. So apologies, the first thing I am going to say is I'm working on two names at the minute, which makes me feel a little bit like James Bond. But if you do look for me on LinkedIn or anything, it's Marie Hill. So apologies, I'm not trialing it out for size. I am sticking with Banks, but I'm in the process of changing. So for those of you that don't know me, I am Marie Hill, Marie Banks. I've been in rail for over 22 years. I'm the Chief Transformation and Digital Officer at DB Cargo UK. It's a bit of a job title, but basically what that means is it's my job to look at where we are as a business today, where we want to be as a business in future, and how we get there. I make no apology, a lot of what I do is underpinned by technology, so it's how we use technology to change, but actually that's reacting to the things that have to change in our business. And one of the things that I've looked at, I'll talk you through, is some of the things that we're doing. And similar to Maggie, I've kind of grouped the themes that we're working on, the different things that we're doing as a business, and what I think is important in innovation and how that's changing in our world. So The first thing is people. It's about creating an environment for innovation. I've worked in rail for over 22 years, and Maggie's right, it has been happening. Innovation is happening in our industry. But the thing that I always say, we certainly don't have all the answers inside of one business. Rarely does that happen. And we're usually not the first people to face that problem. And I think Neil's point was really, really well made. There are lots of businesses that are facing the same challenges that we face or have had the same problems in our business, and we can learn a lot from those businesses. But ultimately, the people that in our business know best how to change or what has to change or what the problem statements are the people that do that job day in, day out. And part of my job is inspire those people to think a little differently, to think about the art of the possible, which is why days like today are so important. And I will give you a plea when I finish on this to do something. But what does that look like in our business? That means that we have to start to get people to think about things differently. It has to be, how do we use technology? What can technology do for us? It's about the people that work in my team, the transformation and digital team, but also our suppliers understanding the problem statements that we face and what we want to fix in our business. In reality, that starts with the people in this room. So I'm going to do a little bit of a thing now, and I'm really sorry for the people that are virtual. You won't be able to join in this. I'm going to ask if you can stand up, for you to stand up. If you can't stand up, stick your hands up. But please, if you can, stand up. And I could have picked anything, any diversity tip here to do this. But then I'm going to ask you, if you're over 40, to sit down. Sorry, everybody. I would have been sitting by this point. Now I'm going to ask if you're over 30 to sit down. I'm going to ask everybody to take a look in the room. I'm sorry if you're under 30. I know this is really embarrassing, and I totally apologise that I've done this to you. There are not very many people in this room standing up. For those of you virtual, I know you probably can't see. I'm probably counting there's maybe 6 or 7 people. You can sit down now, thank you. And I made a point there, and I made an uncomfortable point for those people under 30, but we have to get diverse thinking in our industry if we want to start doing things differently. I could have picked female. I could have picked ethnicity. It doesn't matter. We have to change the skill base that's working on innovation in our industry. So my plea to you on this part is about talking about innovation. It's about talking about the things that we're doing that is sexy, that is challenging the way that we do things. Use LinkedIn, use those social media profiles, get your PR and marketing and comms teams to shout about the amazing things that we do. Because Richard's right, I couldn't tell you what's happening in innovation. It's my area. I couldn't tell you all the great things that are happening. If we want to attract talent, that's how we do it. We have to make our industry sexy. We have to make it the industry of choice. If you're talented, you want to be with us on our journey to change. So the next thing I want to pick up on is sustainability. But I'm going to take that a little bit wider than the traditional view of sustainability around cleaner and greener. And we absolutely have to do that. And we have a huge challenge at DB Cargo. We need bridging strategies. And those strategies are true for people, because we have a high age profile in our business, but they're also true for our assets. Most of our assets won't be changed for the next 20 years, which means we don't get a shiny new asset coming off the production line with all the technology enabled. We have to retrofit it. And for anyone that's done that in rail, it's virtually impossible. So one of the hardest tasks to do is to fit that technology to our assets, but our assets have to get intelligent. We also have to look at how we identify waste. So sustainability for me means embedding change in our business. It means using innovation to actually keep and enable that change. And it creates a bit of a snowball effect. And we do that by looking for waste. So where have we got waste in our business? And I'm not going to pick up on our IoT sensors. I'm actually going to talk about something different in this area that we're doing. And it's with a really innovative company. They're in the room today. They don't normally work in rail. They came to work with us. And when you talk about skill, 2 of my interns that I took from a Sheffield Hallam University programme went to work at this company. That's why I'm working with them. That talent connection enabled me to make a connection with a superb company that's allowing innovation. And they're building something for me called Efficiency Portal. And what that does, it farms all of our data and it looks at the efficiencies that we found manually, that maybe a train driver's told us this train always gets stuck at this stop, or one of our planners has told us, you know what, that path's not very efficient. They look and they surface all of those examples and they rank them for us in an efficiency portal. part of what I want to do is make that technology, make those platforms more readily available in our industry, talk about those great innovations, bring those suppliers that wouldn't normally be in rail into our business. Those SMEs that are doing great things in other businesses can solve our problems today in a much more efficient way than we can. And each one of those things of waste that we identify and solve mean that we can become more productive, more efficient at what we do, and we can offer a better service and price to our customers. Optimization. So ultimately, we need to do more with less. And what does that look like? Well, for us at DB, again, that looks like using the assets that we've got better. That includes things like optimization. Now, actually, one of the biggest challenges in innovation is bringing your stakeholders in a business with you. So I know quite often my head has gone to a million different places, and I have to then try and engage with our business and get them to understand that when you invest in technology, often the first part of technology deployment is uncomfortable because it brings change. We can't get to optimizing locomotives until we've systemized those and we've automated those. That journey has not been an easy journey in our business. We have to change the cultures in our business to try and accept innovation, but that's a difficult journey. But what we are starting to see in these areas is actually looking at a whole process very differently. It's a really good example, and it's actually happening. I know a few of you had a conflict of interest today with one of our teams in Doncaster looking at musculoskeletal injury. So does it relate to technology? Absolutely. I'd love for us to get rid of the tasks that cause musculoskeletal injury in our business. And we are absolutely looking at that, but we have to devise a roadmap to removing musculoskeletal. And the way that we do that is to look at the tasks that cause that problem, the people that suffer that problem, and how we can do that differently. And we have a short, medium, and long-term roadmap out of musculoskeletal injury. And the short term might be things like a different type of boot. So a really brilliant innovation from Amazon Logistics and Schenker Logistics, where they changed the dynamic of their safety boot to walk on hard, compacted concrete. You know what? We need that innovation in the total opposite way. We need a boot that's brilliant at walking on ballast. And that boot isn't just going to add value to my business, but it'll also add value to Network Rail and the numbers of organisations that work out on the track every day. So it's about finding and unlocking a roadmap to removing the task. We do that with technology partners and suppliers. So for me, strategic partnerships, collaboration, Neil talked about it in his presentation at the beginning. We don't have the solutions to those problems ourselves, but we only get to meet those partners if they know that we've got a problem in that area. So part of what we have to do as an industry is get more open and transparent about the things that are stopping us being sustainable or productive or efficient. Kind of falls on with market-based. So I did something recently where I was listening to people talk about, you know, who's the best at what they do in rail. You know, I will make no apology. I don't look at rail for the best in the world. I look for people who are the best in the world at that process. So whether it's customer service, whether it's production, manufacturing, I want to know who is doing amazing things in their world. And Maggie's right, I wish we could have done the visit around some of the warehousing facilities, because yes, their technology is second to none. And I know the business that we were going to look at, and I've been inside those buildings, and it is phenomenal. If you get an opportunity, go and see it. But my plea to you is take the opportunity to see what other industries does, because those same warehouses that have the best technology have the best methods of engaging their people in the business on Kanban and how they can improve a process. They're not looking, just like sports psychologists, one of the best areas to look at improving performance and innovation. They're not looking for a game changer, a complete radical transformation of innovation. They're looking at those shaving seconds off a process, and that's what we've got to do to embed that incremental change. And then the final one is data-driven. And it's probably one of my biggest passions. It's one of the biggest things that I've dropped at DB that I'm proudest of. And that's our digital situation room. That tells us our how. It tells us how we're operating today. It tells us how we're performing. It tells us where our business is, how those assets are performing. But actually, what it also does, again, is bring and unlock innovation. So, for example, we're working really hard with RSSB. They've got a phenomenal data lab. How many of you knew that was there? I didn't until about 18 months ago. I will absolutely exploit that if I can to solve our business challenges. But we're looking at something with them around how we understand our paths that our trains operate in and how those SRTs are running, because we've got enough data to be able to solve and challenge those problem statements. But it's also things like Rail Data Marketplace. How many of you knew that existed? Are you using it? When we get and land new innovation in our industry, it's incumbent upon us, those people that work in our industry, to actually make those successful. And we only do that if we all take part in that. So, one of the things that I'd like to leave you with is taking inspiration. So, I've worked in rail, as I told you, for 22 years. I work in technology. I'm not a technologist. I take innovation from those things that are in and around me day to day. And that's one of the things I try and encourage our business people to do. I'll leave you with one example of how we've done this. And Maggie talked about it, attracting customers to rail. I looked at our customer relationship, and all of our teams working in sales, customer service, no one had looked at this. And one of my teams came in and I looked at the process, and we end our customer journey, our customer relationship. We're in a transactional business. We move the same product for you every single week. We end our relationship with an invoice. It's a negative connotation in a business relationship. How do we change that? So I gave my team, the technology team, a challenge, and I said, find me something we can do to do that differently. And one of the team came in, it was one of the junior guys in the team, and he said, just fueled my car up, and they've sent me something that shows me the carbon that I've saved by using this type of fuel. And I was like, we can use that. That's really good. So we now send our customers at the end of the month, we send you your invoice. We're in a business, we have to make money. But after we've sent you your invoice, we're going to send you a carbon statement, which shows you how much carbon you've saved by moving your product on rail. And it's those small things. That idea came from someone fueling their car in a petrol station because we had a problem statement we needed to solve. So my plea to you is look at the technology, look at the things that you're using, look at the great customer experience you get and think, how do I bring that into rail? Look for those SMEs that are working in that floor space because they will solve those problems for you. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And the eagle-eyed or eared of you noticed that we're not taking any Q&A today. It's because we have a very busy program and we would spend the whole day here discussing about the benefits of innovation. What I would like to encourage you to do is to chat with the speakers during the networking break, and we will go through all the presentations because all the speakers have a very tight brief of timings. Right. So I would like to move on to Tim Hartley, who is the Business Development Director of GB RailFreight. Please ignore this slide, and I'm sorry, Tim. There we go.
I've only been here 2 minutes and I've been demoted already, so thanks for that. Top button. Okay. My name is Tim Hartley, Business Development Director for GB RailFreight, and I'm responsible for a number of different things in the organisation, but things that are focused on future. That are focused on growth and that are focused on innovation. So I lead our sales organisation and I work with colleagues to promote what we do with politicians, managing public affairs. Interestingly, I also lead HR because people are at the very heart of what we do as a business. I lead business implementation, so that's around how we can commercialise and how we can operationalise work that we've won in the sales organisation, which I also lead. So I wanted to do 4 things. I wanted to tell you a little bit about us as a business. I then wanted to talk about some of the investments that we're making. I wanted to talk about safety, and then I wanted to talk finally about the future and how we're embedding sustainability into the organisation. So just a quick canter through where we have come from. We're founded in 1999 in London, and we have been for the last 24 years one of the fastest growing businesses in the rail freight sector. And the reason that we've been able to do that is because of the culture that we've had. We've had a people-first culture across those 24 years. We have recruited, we've developed, we have trained the very best people within the industry, and that has enabled us to perform and to grow in a sustainable fashion for that period of time. And we aspire to be the most dependable logistics service business delivered by the very best in the industry. It's not good enough that we are just an outstanding rail freight business. We need to be part of an integrated supply chain. We need to innovate alongside our customers. You know, we need to work with them to ensure that we can do all that we can to solve their today's problems, but also their problems of the future. And there's a technology aspect to that. There's also a ways of working aspect to that. We have people deployed within our customer locations at the moment, working in their systems, taking data, taking insights from their systems and using that to make our business perform better. And it's that sort of innovation, I think, that helps us to differentiate ourselves. Brief snapshot. We've actually now got 1,300 people in the business. It was 1,100 when I put this together a couple of weeks ago. So it demonstrates really how quickly we're growing. We're moving 22% of the UK's freight. We've had 99% reliability since 2009, and we're growing, as I'll show you in a second, both our locomotive and our wagon fleet. And over now 2,000 train loads a week is what we do. The biggest investment that we're undertaking over the course of the next couple of years is our new Class 99s, which maybe some of you have heard about. We're procuring 30 bimode locomotives. These are locomotives that have got a modular design, so they've got overhead wire electrification as well as a powerful enough diesel engine to pull a fully laden freight train. Diesel at the moment, but because of the design, you know, we can lift out the diesel engine and we can replace it with fuel cells or with batteries or wherever the technology goes. We've got a platform here that's going to enable us to take advantage of that technology. They're coming in next year. They'll be fully operational and homologized by 2025. And they're going to significantly impact the carbon that we are able to save for our customers. We're going to be able to replace the kind of workhorse of our fleet, the Class 66, with this brand new piece of technology. This is the gap between now and a fully electrified railway. Our Class 66s have already got the most efficient diesel engines in the market. These diesel engines are going to be even more efficient than those. We're also buying new wagons. We're buying 100 new wagons from Porterbrook. That is helping to support the growth in our construction market, but also in our intermodal market. Innovation is around helping customers to do more in existing markets, but also we talked a little bit earlier about modal shift. How do we get more volume off road and do we get it onto rail? And the way that we're doing that in part is by having the right assets, the most technology-enabled assets, the most sustainable and the safest assets that exist in UK rail freight. These have already been delivered in parts. They're going to be delivered throughout the course of this next year. And then infrastructure. We're spending nearly £5 million on a brand new wagon maintenance facility in Peterborough. We've already broken ground on this. I was in Peterborough yesterday. I was overlooking the East Coast Main Line and our loco maintenance facility, and we saw the construction of this wagon maintenance facility. All of our intermodal sets are going to be able to move through the Peter maintenance facility. It's going to make our operation more efficient. It's going to make it greener and more sustainable. And to one of the points that was made earlier, it's going to reduce downtime in the way that we manage our assets. It's also going to improve safety and reliability. We're going to have more access to more of our locos, more of our wagons more frequently. Also, we're adding smart sensor technology onto our wagons, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. So investment is critical to our future. There we go. Safety. One of the things that we've implemented throughout the course of 2022, after quite a lot of working with our colleagues in unions and throughout the business, is body-worn cameras. And these have been probably the best safety innovation that has been delivered in our business over the course of the last 5 or 6 years. We've rolled these out throughout all of our ground staff last year. And there's a couple of sites where we can't do it, generally MOD sites, but pretty much every single one of the areas in which we operate now has our ROs with body-worn cameras, and these are absolutely brilliant for a number of different reasons. It demonstrates that our people on the ground are doing their jobs properly. We've had about 12 occasions to go back and look at body cam footage, 2 instances where we've had challenges on the network where the RO has been exonerated because they've done a risk-triggered commentary. You know, they have prepared a train in an absolutely exemplary fashion, and the body cam footage that we've seen has proven this. It's meant that people have been able to get back to work quickly, you know, when there's been an incident, and it has enabled us to ensure that we can get to the root cause of problems quickly. I've talked a bit about wagon maintenance through our new wagon maintenance hub, but we're also deploying sensor and communication technology across our entire fleet of wagons. This is under trial at the moment, and it's designed to monitor all of the safety critical components on wagons to give us real-time information that enables us to predict and prevent where problems are going to occur. It'll be able to tell us whether or not we've got challenges in relation to handbrakes left on, and it will dramatically improve the risk management that's associated with our wagon fleet. These sensors are going to be installed to detect and measure all of the safety critical functionality, and to also enable us to look at future wear and tear so that we can make maintenance interventions in the most appropriate fashion. And then, there we go. Back one more. Going right to the beginning. Talk amongst yourselves. Did I tell you about our Class 99s? Okay, in order for this to be able to work, and I think probably everybody in the room will agree with me on this, we've got to make the case for electrification, infill electrification in the places where it's appropriate. We all know where that is. It's across the Fens, it's Mainey Bridge, it's Ipswich and Felixstowe. But government needs to support us to drive the innovation that the rail freight sector brings by helping us to electrify the railway. These key infill schemes aren't as expensive as many of the other projects that the railway is undertaking, but it is so critical to enable us to help bring about modal shift. What I've not touched on here is things like the mode shift revenue support. We need more of that as well, if anybody from our political colleagues are listening. So we've set ourselves some targets around sustainability, which is the third and final area that I want to talk about. In order for us to be able to change, we have to be accountable. And this is inward looking within our business, but it's in relation to everything that we do with our customers and the wider communities that we support as well. We're going to be doing biofuel trials. Others in the room have done that. We're putting in place salary sacrifice schemes for our people so that we can move to electric vehicles. We're looking at the commutes that people are undertaking themselves. We've brought in a fleet of electric vehicles for our ROs on the ground, so that we can deliver our operations in a more efficient way. And we're switching to renewable energy across all of our operations and all of our offices as well. By 2027, we're going to implement science-based targets. I've already described the Class 99s and the value that they're going to bring in helping us drive to zero emissions and zero carbon across the electrified network. We're working with customers on biofuel trials at the moment, and we're removing single-use plastics from the entirety of our operation. It's these things, small things perhaps, but that are going to work together to ensure that we are a sustainable business. But sustainability, though environmental sustainability is important, is also about economic sustainability. I've told you a bit about the investments that we're making, but also social sustainability. As a consequence of our real desire to address sustainability in those three ways, we've launched the Back on Track programme to focus on social sustainability. It's a pilot scheme currently that we've launched in Ipswich, and it's around what we can do as an organisation to mentor, to develop and to help support our future leaders and future members of staff. So this is about getting into 15-year-olds in schools in deprived areas. Interestingly, some of the most deprived areas are where we operate, in Felixstowe, in Peterborough and in Doncaster. So we need to help attract a different sort of talent for the future. You know, yesterday's problems and challenges aren't going to be the same as tomorrow's. Technology-enabled businesses are going to require different sorts of leaders. So attracting that diverse talent is absolutely critically important, but we're working with customers to deliver the Back on Track programme as well. And it's something that we're doing in joint venture with the likes of OOCL and Uniserve to big customers for our intermodal business. And this is something that we're going to be rolling out across the entirety of the business. So, and finally, my final slide, giving back is about supporting people in the future, but it's about supporting people now as well. And over the course of the last 3 years, we've given, in fact, last Friday, we handed over a cheque of a little over £200,000 for prostate cancer. It's a charity that is close to my heart, but also, we lost one of our general managers last year to prostate cancer. It's a charity that's really close to everybody's heart at GB RailFreight. We're delighted to have been able to support them. We're delighted that from 2023 onwards, we're going to be supporting Alzheimer's. So hopefully what I've demonstrated, 4 things, bit about us and how we're changing. Secondly, how we're investing in the future. The fact that we're a profitable business and we're able to invest and reinvest in the business, I think, is differentiating. How safety is at the heart of what we're doing, and how innovation around safety is genuinely differentiating. And then finally, what we're doing from a social perspective, from a sustainability perspective, to lead the future of not only rail freight but integrated logistics too. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tim. Our next speaker, Lucy Hudson from Transport for the North, will join us online. You will not be able to see her, but you will be able to hear her. Lucy, are you with us?
I am. Can you hear me?
We can. Absolutely amazing.
Brilliant. Well, you probably will be able to hear me and my dog Freya, because she's been quite vocal today because there's lots going on in the house. So it might be quite spicy in a minute, but we'll see how we get on.
We'll work it out.
Good. So if you go next slide, please. There we go. So my name's Lucy Hudson. I work for Transport for the North, as you can see on the screen. And mainly I'm here to talk about our freight and logistics strategy that we launched at Christmas after our board had approved it earlier in the year. So next slide, please. Okay, so I hope you aren't getting too many flashbacks of lockdown with the next slide, please moments during the. Oh no, back one. That was a bit. Oh no, backwards, not forwards. No, that's forwards. Back. Stop. So what I'm going to talk about is the freight objectives, our network, a bit about road and rail interventions, a bit about what we're doing in the modelling and analysis sphere, because that is quite innovative, and some of the recommendations that we've put within our strategy that our board have agreed, and how we're going to sort of potentially spice those up a bit as we go forward. So now next slide, please. There we go. So our strategy's got, none of those things on that slide are going to surprise any of you. I would hope it doesn't anyway. We want, energy efficient goods movement, however that is, whether it's on the railway, which I think is, in terms of decarbonisation, it's the only show in town to get really good, solid movement of goods on the railway. We need it electrified, but also the investment in the bimodes, like you just heard from Tim. So decarb and energy efficient goods movement is something that we're really keen to see. When you look, we're also very interested across the north to watch with interest around the work around hydrogen, around the work around electrification of road goods vehicles, so light goods and heavy goods vehicles, and that's changing all the time. So I think keeping an eye on both the rail freight market but also the road freight market is something that as an organisation we are very keen to see. The other thing that's really important, I think it's worth mentioning before as we go on, is the east-west connectivity. So our strategy and the previous work I've done at Transport for the North is built on getting freight across the Pennines basically on rail, because at the moment we rely too much on sort of more direct road routes that are getting heavily congested. But if we get that freight on the railway, we can sort of promote decarbonisation, but we can also free the roads up and build more resilience in the routes within the north of England. So now we'll go for next slide, please. So you'll see there's a picture of a port and terminal. So you can see that we've mapped them all across the the sort of the UK network, but as well as part of the north as well. And you can see that east-west band, where you've got ports and you've got terminals, that you can see why it's really important to us that actually there's a real hotspot of terminals, of potential places that can be connected by the railway if it's the right market and it's the right time. So I think that's really one of the key kind of aspects that the reason that we've got the strategy that we've got. You can see we've got the major ports, so Hull and Grimsby and Immingham. So together they make the Humber ports, and they are the largest UK port by tonnage. Even after coal, they still move the most stuff by weight because of the volumes of biomass that they take to Drax, and all the other goods, like they bring in a lot of fertilizer that goes into the agricultural areas as well. So it's really important to the north of England. The ports are really, really crucial, but also connecting them to the right terminals at the right time is also really critical to us as well. So we need better access onto the East Coast Main Line, the West Coast Main Line, and making sure the investment that we put in the railway doesn't detract from rail freight growth in sort of as those investments advance. Next slide, please. There we go. This is going well. Now, those people who are looking at the screen really carefully and are not just having a quick look at the phone will notice that on that screen it says Rotterdam, and I thought this was a really good sort of point today to make that. Okay, we're doing loads of great things in rail freight in England and Wales and Scotland and Ireland, but I think one of the things that really struck me in Europe, and I had the opportunity. This is a photo I took, so I'm allowed to use it because it's and I've checked that I'm allowed to use it. But it's a part of the Port of Rotterdam. They've got a freight facility that takes lorry based containers, and it lifts it wheels and all and drops it on the railway. And I think part of that is really, really, really useful because it helps. It helps speed up some of the movements, but B, it helps promote decarbonisation. So you get sort of shared markets. So all the driver has to do is come up with his tractor, drop the wagon off, and then it lifts on, as you can see with that enormous crane onto the train. And having seen it sort of close, it's a phenomenal thing to watch. But if we could get some infrastructure like that into the north or into even UK as a whole, I think that would help grow the market significantly. The map on the left of the screen you'll see shows the intermodal services that are running at the moment, and you'll see that there are currently no east-west services, and that's sort of illustrating that gap as well. One of the things we really want to see is the delivery of both the Transpennine route upgrade, but also the wider benefits. So making sure that the wider connectivity onto that upgrade is seen to be delivered and delivers for freight customers. So that's something we call for within our strategy. And the next slide, please. I'm just highlighting that we also have roads. We are talking a lot about railways today, but I think it's just worth us touching that as part of the work that we have done at TfM, we've not only looked at the rail network, but we looked at the major road network. So we highlighted that those roads that connect all the important economic centres and some of those locations that you will see from our member organisations as well. The dots are the sort of current and future economic centres, and you'll see the enterprise zones highlighted as well. And I think as well, you'll see there's a lot of activity in the northeast, but I think you can see that those pink dots where you've got the enterprise zones are centred around freight centres, but also ports as well. So I think you can see the economic impact that connecting those sort of hubs to logistics centres is really important. And the next slide, please. Warehousing. This is a photo that we've taken as well. This is it's AV Dawson in Middlesbrough, and there's a rail wagon within a warehouse, which was just a phenomenal thing to see. I think I've stolen this slide from the Future of Freight long-term plan, published by DFT, because it was a nice little image showing where the warehousing clusters are. And I think one of the things that we want to do in the north of England is they celebrate that east-west link, but also highlight the fact that there are opportunities in the north of England for better connected warehousing, for newer sites, for developing sites that meet different logistics needs. I did a bit of sort of reverse analysis on some Savills research, and in the east and the west of the north, you get different types of warehousing being developed for different things. In the northwest, where you got a lot more people, you get more shopping and grocery delivery warehousing set up, so that serves the higher population centres. But equally, you get more manufacturing in the east. So each of those different classifications will have different transport needs. But if we can promote rail connected activity, if we can sort of get a bit of a toolkit together to help local authorities make those decisions, and also help them plug into the right sort of kind of infrastructure, it can only be beneficial, I think. When you look at somewhere like Heinz factory in Wigan, they're looking at a very different way of connecting up, getting onto the railway. They basically lifting stuff off the side of their factory, which is adjacent to the railway, and then dropping the containers onto the track. But then the train just waits there, loads up, and then carries on. And if there's space on the network, if it's done at night and at the right time, they've proven that it's possible to do. So there's people out there wanting to innovate, like the point that was made earlier, which was really clear. But I think it's sort of tapping into that and then making sure that the environment, that the people that innovation is happening can actually be seen to be delivered. I think that when Heinz worked with Network Rail, it was really a positive relationship, and there was very much a can-do focus, which I think reflects how Richard explained the role of GBRTT going forward as well, which is really, really encouraging. And next slide, please. So if any of you are surprised by that list of rail interventions, I would be surprised. You'll see it's the things that I've mentioned: Transpennine, Castlefield Corridor and Trafford Park are a big thing for us in TFN, making sure that we don't, that sort of, we're looking at this sort of Manchester task force area. So areas are in Manchester that are heavily congested with both passengers and freight trains. So how do we sort of make sure that Manchester operates optimally, but also how do we link those opportunities that some of those trains are coming from Felixstowe, and or Southampton, or they're going and they're routing themselves through London. And if they're routing themselves through London, they avoid the London peak, but they end up in the Manchester peak potentially. And that's an issue that RailFreight wrestles with all the time. And it's how do we make the best use of our infrastructure for and make those decisions around the trade-offs between passengers and freight, which I think is a really juicy topic that we will end up having to pick up in future, especially with the drive for decarbonisation, and looking at passenger loads on trains. I think that'll be a very, very interesting debate as we go forward. There's areas around the northeast freight enhancements, because they northeast, so Teesport links to the iPort in Doncaster, which we're going to see, but also they've got the iPort have also got traffic going into the Port of Birmingham as well. So it'll be interesting to see what train is there when you're there. I do know it's one of the most fantastic things I've seen. So I hope you all enjoy that visit as well. And then the Port of Liverpool access to the West Coast Main Line, making sure that that opens up the possibilities for the Liverpool 2 terminal, where they've got the deep sea berths with all their new fancy cranes. Right, next slide, please. There we go. Just also proof that we talk about roads as well. I know we're talking about rail innovation, but this is the road slide. I don't think that any of those things are going to surprise you. We even have the freight connectivity to Doncaster Airport Rail and Widnes. So there we go. And there's a rogue bullet point there as well. Anyway, next slide, please. So this is where we've got quite a lot of our innovation. We've developed a freight data repository, which is a tool that utilizes some of the data from the standardized data model, the Great Britain freight model developed by MDS Transmodal. So we've rebased the data to 2018 figures, and then we've built it within our northern model, which is really sort of forward thinking, and we've integrated it into both land use model and our transport models. There are opportunities, I think, to develop further with about the economic case, mainly because when you look at the how DFT and others make the economic assessments about how you invest in transport, there could be better ways of economically capturing the value of rail freight, and I think that's something that's the space I am keen to explore further at TFN, because I think it's really important. I do apologise that my dog is going mental, but I hope you can't hear it too badly. So that's the sort of freight that links to the freight data repository, which is the local freight tool. But we have got what we are able to do is we are able to help our partners. So if people are partners like in local authorities, if they're looking to put plans together or look at investment, we can help with that and show the benefits from our own models for the TFN have developed. But we are also looking at a pan-England version, so looking at a common analytical framework that we have been given money to deliver from the DFT. So over the next couple of years, we're doing that with the other subnational transport bodies, which brings me on to my next slide, which should be nearly the last one. So this is just to prove that we're not alone. These are the other subnational transport bodies in England. You've got Midlands Connect and other areas, but I work closely with all of them on freight and logistics. So we do have a freight and logistics community of practice, which we talk about what we're each doing in the freight and logistics space, but also work that we can do jointly. And it's the warehousing stuff, the warehousing toolkit that we are wrestling with at the moment. And we've done joint responses to different government calls for evidence and that sort of thing. So we have worked together, and we have looked at the shared priorities. Each of us have one example. I think I will end on is the Ely example, because if you don't invest in Ely, a lot of the rail freight activity that we need in the north, because it comes from the south and through Felix, so we don't get it in the north of England. That also then crosses a number of other STV boundaries. So we collectively talk about Ely as an important part for at least 5 of us, with Western Gateway and West Peninsula. So thinking it's important too. But I think Peninsula Transport have got the least interest, but the rest of us have got interest in that area. So I think there are a few schemes and a few areas of investment and innovation that we all want to see delivered. Next slide. I think it's going to be thank you. Oh no, our recommendations. So the 4 themes of recommendations. You won't be surprised to see decarbonisation, better capacity and capability on the network, and what does that look like, and how do we model that, and how do we get that invested in, and argued for multimodal connected warehousing, which we touched on, making sure that our warehouses can meeting the needs of the customers now, but also the sort of future-looking customers around making sure that they're decarbonised or they're zero carbon, and they've got the right innovation within their warehousing. And then our national activities, so making sure that we continue to have that voice at a national level, but also informed by industry and others to make sure we are seeking and asking for the most appropriate investment in the north of England. Right, I think that, next slide please. I think that's me done. So that's my details. Like other people have said, I'm on LinkedIn, but hopefully I haven't spoken for too long and you've got a flavour of what we're doing.
Thank you very much, Lucy. There's a round of applause for you. I have to say, there was one thing that I did miss from lockdown is seeing a lot of people pets. So just hearing yours is actually quite nice. And your dog had some very interesting points. So thank you for that. Thank you for joining us online. And we're now moving on to our next speakers. Robert, are you going to be on your own or are you bringing Aaron with you? Okay, excellent. So we'll have a duo of speakers and we'll hear about rail research.
Hello, everyone. I'm Robert Staunton, Research and Innovation Account Manager at the RSSB, and I'm here with my colleague, Aaron Barrett, and today we're going to talk to you about how research can help unlock innovation and support it. So I had to use this picture because it's quite a common thing. As soon as somebody does something different on the railway, sometimes you're faced with a perfectly placed sign like this. But actually, we can do a lot to fix things. First things first, and we notice that there's some under 30s here, so I thought we'd just quickly check if you know who the RSSB are. We are not going to check that you're wearing your high-vi, we are not going to investigate your derailment, and we are not going to try and put you in jail. What we do is we hold the standards on behalf of the industry, and then we examine industry safety and sustainability, we monitor that, and we try and improve it and put in place things that can improve it. As part of that, and our central role as an independent or evidence-based organisation in the centre of the rail industry, working with all these partners, is we have a research programme. And that research programme is funded by the DFT, and it works with industry at every stage. And we use that symbiosis that we have internally within the research team, within RSSB, with standards and safety to bring some pretty unique capabilities to the research we do. So today, really, I want to tell you about how to unlock these new opportunities, but also talk about industry change, implementing it, future, and how to get involved. Straight in on it is the research we're doing can help you land new products into the freight space and all spaces. We explore a lot of the future issues that are coming in future developments, and people want to know, what does this mean for the industry? We do that research, and then we share it with everybody. And if you look carefully into that, you can find the path that's going to be taken. We signpost where there's new ground, and interestingly, for any of the suppliers here, often this new ground is where there's no current UK suppliers, and it opens up a great opportunity for you. If you look at an example like digital automatic couplers, what will the UK do? What alternatives might we look at? None of that is answered yet, and the research gives you that good framing. We also remove barriers for the industry to advance. This changes the market. So what you once thought were the rules and what we all accepted can change. So we want to break the existing limits of operation. It sounds strange for a safety organisation to say this. And if you look at the picture there, you see that little red mark there at 75 miles an hour. Well, we're working in industry to see if there really is a case to move that, to increase the speeds that we can operate at. And we do that responsibly, and we evaluate what the true safety risk is. That's our job. We'll look at the detail, and we give that confirmation back to industry that a change can be made. We realign and redefine the mechanisms for cost and benefit. So quite often, the person who benefits from it might not be the person who has to put in the cost. And often it's difficult to reconcile, but we work hard to try and do that. And third way that things can change is that we release new ways of working. You know, we do a lot of industry coordination. We prepare the new cases, we present the evidence, and we get the change put in place. We create safe, clear, recognized and agreed guidance. All of a sudden, you can do things differently. And Aaron is going to go through some of the examples that we have in our research program. So research is worth paying attention to because it doesn't just sit on a shelf. Here's some of the things that we use to frame our research to get industry's attention, to make it usable. We do deliver new insights, But we also create business cases that we design so that they're ready to go for industry to pick up. We go further, we do pilots and case studies. We create tools and models to make things easier to use. And we rely on that position and privilege that we have to hold the standards to implement research findings within those. Implementation is really, really important to us. Whoa. If there's any help at the end of the room, that would be brilliant, just to bring it back onto that slide. Thank you. If I can go to slide 63, please. Okay, I can do this off by heart, apologies. The next thing we do is implementation. So when we create research, we don't just leave it as a document. We actually bolt on the implementation elements of our research to it. And then we monitor how our projects are going. We check when they get their first use. We see when more and more people are using them in industry. We lean on that to do more. And then we look for until we reach full implementation. So we can see those stages run through here very quickly. So the planning, first use, all of that. And unfortunately, we get a weak signal back from industry as to how our items are being used. We know that they're used and we do monitor for them. But I have an ask for you. If you're using RSSB research and you're here today, please grab me later, let me know and have a chat. And if you're not using it and want to know more, we can also explain that to you. So there isn't really a crystal ball for the industry, but if you look at the research that's produced and the industry documents and things that are put out there for people to consult on, you can get a real sense of the direction that things are going. And as somebody who's hoping to supply into the industry or is working in the industry, that's really valuable. So please don't ignore research, because it really does point you towards where things are going. And you can get involved. You can get involved in being a supplier for us and getting stuck into doing our work. And on the back sheet of our quarterly update, we list the projects that will be coming out for tender. You can also propose new research and make sure that we're answering the questions that are important to you. And you can speak to either myself or Aaron today. So I'll hand over to Aaron now, who'll go through some of the specifics.
Thank you very much, Rob. So Rob talked us through what RSSB do as an R&D program as a whole. So what are we doing for freight specifically? Well, in 2020, the freight industry came to the DFT, headed by Maggie, and said, we need more freight research to unlock innovation and unlock the benefits that innovation can deliver us. So the DFT came to us as part of that ask and said, can you deliver more freight dedicated research? So we engaged with the freight community. And we asked what their needs were. And there were some key things that came out of those discussions. They wanted to unlock barriers, specifically in a number of areas. And those barriers were around route access, for heavier, for longer, and for larger freight. How can I get more out of the stuff that I'm using currently? I wanted to make sure that my freight train is running not just as fast as it possibly can, but potentially even faster. But first of all, if our average freight train is currently moving at around 30 miles an hour, and I have a capability of 75, let's see if we can get closer to that 75 as an average speed. Then how can I improve freight maintenance? We've heard a lot about technology and the benefits that technology offers. How can we make sure that is implemented in the industry? And thinking back to what Rob said a moment ago, making sure we understand what that business case is. Who has the benefits, who has the costs, and how do we make sure that we reconcile those two things when they're different to each other? And finally, and you've heard it a lot today, how do we make sure that our industry decarbonates itself? And really, we look for that question through some of the research that we do. How do we deliver these benefits in a low carbon way? So what have we been doing? And I'm going to give you some specific examples now. I promise. Here we go. So thinking about creating new space to land products, and Rob mentioned previously about informing the introduction of digital automatic couplers. This is an initiative that the EU are heavily invested in and they're looking to introduce. is it the right opportunity for GB? GB operate their freight flows in a different way. And the analysis that we did said there is a business case, but it is a tricky one and we have to think about it. And again, as Rob mentioned, that opens up the opportunities for alternative solutions that allow us to get those enabling benefits. Those are benefits around monitoring our trains' conditions on the network, things like that. If we think about removing barriers, and again, this is where RSSB has power, we own the standards. We are the people responsible for updating them. If we can find good, solid, robust evidence to update the standards to allow and remove certain barriers, then we can update the standards to allow those new things to happen. And here are some examples. So we previously published a piece of work around updating coupler strength ratings. So one of the limiting factors for the amount our freight trains can haul is the strength of the couplers. We did some research to find that we can uprate that strength, that rating that exists on those couplers that are on the network today. So that's a really good thing. But we also integrated that finding into our standards so that in the future, as new couplers come onto the market, as new capabilities are introduced with increased strength, you can challenge those standards and you can say, I have a better, stronger coupler, let account for me, put me in the standards too. There are other things as well, thinking about freight differentials. At the moment, there are limitations that our freight trains can go in terms of their speed because of signalling distances, because we assume a poor braking capability of our freight trains. That isn't true of all our freight trains. And actually, if we have better data and we're able to input that into our systems, we might be able to go at faster speeds. Now, I'm not talking about going over those maximum of 75, but at the moment, there might be a line speed limitation somewhere because of signalling distance of maybe 40. But my freight train, because it can stop more effectively, actually could be capable of going 60 over that particular line of route, particularly in the southern region where the 2/3 rule is now no longer available to us. And finally, new ways of working. And again, thinking about that technology that exists, helping introduce it to. We might be agnostic to a particular supplier, but we want to help introduce new ways of working and new technology. And if we can provide impartial evidence to evidence that we can use to industry to support the implementation of new things, we will do that. Oh. So we have a whole host of pipeline that is coming on, a whole host of research projects, and I'm happy to talk about any of them. I've just highlighted a few today, so please get in touch. As Rob said, there's a way to find out more about not just the program, but the R&D research as a whole. On our website, we have a dedicated freight research program page. Please have a look at it. And again, through the research catalogue, that provides a open access to anybody to see any of the research that we've published. And we also have a repository of Spark, which also contains some of that historical research that wasn't just delivered by RSSB, but delivered internationally and previously by things like BR research. What's going on? So we're doing a lot of stuff in a lot of topics, and I will leave it here. I'll press once, hopefully it'll go, and I'll leave it there, and I'll say thank you very much for your time today.
I think we've learned a lesson. This button is very sensitive. Right, moving on from RSSB, just as our next speaker has done, Giulia Lorenzini, who is now at Connected Places Catapult, and will finish this morning's session to talk about funding, which we all love. So, Giulia.
I don't have a checkbook in my bag, so you can just leave it there. So thanks, Milda, and thanks for having me here today. It's really great, and thank you for the very thought-provoking presentation. I hope mine will sort of dovetail quite nicely into what I'm about to present. I'm going to try and use the clicker, which is clearly I'm not able to. Next slide. Perfect. So I'm here today to talk about the Freight Innovation Fund. But before I do so, as Milda said, I may have met you in my previous life at RSSB, but as of January, clearly, dieting was not working, so I decided to change job as well as dieting. So I'm now at the Catapult. Next slide. For those of you who don't know, there we go. So the Catapult network is a family of 9 leading innovation centres spread across the UK. And we touch on very different topics, from high-value manufacturing to medical research, and specifically the Connected Places Catapult. Some of you may remember is a merge between the Transport System Catapult and the Future Cities Catapult. So it's now combined into one. And our mission is to really drive the application of the technology, like Marie was mentioning earlier, in everything that we do, in the way that we work, in the way that we live and operate. So next slide. About the Freight Innovation Fund itself, what it is. It's a 2-year, £7 million programme that is funded by the Department of Transport, and that is delivered by us at the Connected Places Catapult. And the idea is to accelerate the adoption of multimodal solutions for freight. And the stress here is on the multimodal. And part of the reason for me being here today, being a rail professional at heart, I thought I would sort of come and really sort of stress the importance of having rail players in this initiative, both in the cluster, which I'm going to touch on in a minute, and also as part of the accelerator program that is funded through the fund. So next slide. Very briefly on the cluster and what it is. It's meant to be an inclusive network of, again, multimodal organizations operating in freight. And it's also, our vision for it is a melting pot for new ideas and new collaboration to be forged, to come together and to drive new opportunities for freight to actually be seen through a different perspective, and to help the sector be seen as more attractive for investments, for innovation, and for everything else. So everyone that is operating in freight is invited to join, from startups to SMEs to large organizations, academics, local authorities, industry bodies, you name it. So everyone is invited. And again, it's a plea today to reach out, and I would love to sort of tell you more about it and get you on board. And the role of the cluster is working very closely with the DfT policymakers behind the freight plan that was launched last year, is to really help shape a program of business support, especially for SMEs and startups, but everyone in the industry, and also upskill and engage around some of the core issues we've touched upon today. Skills being one, EDI, equality, diversity and inclusion being another one. But one of the key instrumental role of the cluster is also to help us shape and understand what the key challenges should be to be considered for the accelerator, so the funded program as part of the fund. So if you move to the next slide. So just to give you an idea of the, if you just click through the next slide, please. So just to give you an idea, the Freight Innovation Cluster will sort of run across the 2 years of the duration of the program. If you go back. And back again. And I think one more. There we go. So the Freight Innovation Cluster will run throughout the 2 years of the program. And whilst we engage with freight companies across different modes, we will also launch 3 accelerators, which is what the Catapult sort of is known for. There are 3 rounds. The first one is actually finishing now, so we're going through a shortlisting at the moment, and there are really interesting ideas being put forward. There will be another one towards September, October this year, and there will be a 3rd round of accelerators in spring of next year. So the Freight Innovation Cluster will inform the challenges of these accelerator, but we'll also have a direct line of communication with the DFT through our cluster board, and we'll engage with the Freight Innovation Council in order to make sure that policymakers and industry across all the modes are talking to each other. If we move to the next slide. About the accelerators, which I thought would also be quite interesting for most of you today. Generally speaking, and these may go up in terms of numbers as we go through the program ourselves, we're talking about a cohort of 10 to 12 SMEs or organizations, which are roughly speaking at a TRL level 5, so with a technology validated in an operational environment, with potentially also access to some sort of testbed locations. The programs are normally 6 months long, and this will be a trial program which is addressing one of the 3 challenges that we put through for the first cohort. And the 3 challenges that we're looking at the moment are data collection and sharing of technology, better aggregation and disaggregation of loads from rail to last mile transport, and the third one is solution for intermodal hubs. So I'll be quite interesting to see what iPort has to offer later. So the grant funding is, again, generally speaking, up to £150,000 per organisation, and this could be a joint bid, so you can partner up with different people, and we would expect a match funding of about 30%, and these, again, can be in kind. If we move to the next slide. The benefits of being involved in an accelerator as the lead organisation clearly are multifaceted. First of all, you will have our full support, and we've got an in-house team at the Catapult to help you plan the trial and design the trial. You'll get business support and business development support throughout. There'll be marketing support. You'll be able to be put in front of some sort of dragon dens investor that are interested in your solution. And there will be a demo day at the end of the 6 months as an opportunity to showcase your product, which will hopefully be very, very close to market thanks to the accelerator effort. And by being part of the accelerator, clearly you will also be automatically enrolled in the cluster. Next slide. So this is the one slide that I'm particularly sort of keen to stop on. At the moment, for the first round of the accelerators, we've got 5 partners: Portsmouth Port, Port of Tyne, Costain, FedEx, and Ferrovie dello Stato, the Italian railways. And again, one of the other reasons that I was keen to join today is because it would be great to get more rail stakeholders involved. So I've heard clearly from Marie, from GBRTT, from DB Cargo, and it would be great if we can get more big players involved as partners. Now, what does it mean? And I'm going to give you the 2 sides of the coin here. If you're involved as a partner, say, you can come on board. There is no financing involved. You're just involved as a partner, as a way to engage with us and inform us of what the real challenges, specifically in your case for rail, are. And we can work with the other partners from other transport modes to shape them and make them substantial for the accelerator applicants. And at the same time, what you will have is access to the shortlist, which we at the Catapult will do, shortlist of SMEs innovation ideas, which you can, if you want, pick from. If you're a partner, you can decide to be matched with one or more, or none, if there's none that are of interest to you. But you will then have access to ready-made ideas that you can pick up and run with, have access to shape in whichever way you want. And again, all that is required is clearly your in-kind support is in time, and in some cases also access to potentially testbed that you may have or other equipment. If you look at the accelerator from the other end, so the applicant point of view, you may have already a great idea, TRL level sort of 4 or 5 that you're ready to work with. You may have a partner, rail or others, ready to handhold you through the process, which is great. But we realize that a lot of SMEs, unfortunately, don't have the resources to necessarily do a lot of business development and get partners on board. And so if you don't have a partner, you can then still have access to the accelerator's funding, and we can then create a match with one of the big players, and you'll be able to work with them on the project. So just to conclude, it would be great to have you on board. It would be great to talk to you, and I can tell you more about what's in it. On my last slide, I've got my contact details and details for some of the colleagues that are involved in it. So come and talk to me at lunchtime. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Giulia. I'll leave the slide here for while I wrap up the session. So we have heard a lot of presentations about strategic rail freight developments. We will now break for lunch. And for those of you joining online, we will be back about 12:45. Also, for those of you here in the room, 12:45, we'll be back in the room. In the afternoon, we will hear from innovators, the people who actually deliver the innovations, the engineers, the inventors, the suppliers. So it is promising to be a very interesting session indeed.